The silence in the house was starting to gnaw at Maya again. The clock ticked too loud, the refrigerator hummed too long, and the empty spaces of the living room echoed with a kind of loneliness that words couldn't quite explain. Her husband, Ethan, had left for a 3-day conference in Chicago. His job always took him places that weren't home. And each time he left, he seemed to take a little more of their connection with him. Maya walked into the kitchen to rinse her coffee cup when she noticed the puddle under the sink again. The cabinet wood was already warping slightly, the smell faintly musty. She sighed. She had told Ethan about it last week. He had said he'd get to it after the trip, like he always did. But the leak wasn't waiting. She hesitated before pulling out her phone, typing "local plumber near me" into the search bar. A company popped up with decent reviews. She called, explained the situation, and they said someone could come within the hour. Good, she thought. At least one man will show up today. Exactly 50 minutes later, a white van pulled up outside. She peeked through the blinds, adjusting her t-shirt a little nervously. The man who stepped out was younger than she expected. Late 20s maybe. A confident stride, worn jeans, dark gray t-shirt that fit him well, not too tight, not too loose. His name tag read Jake. He knocked politely and smiled when she opened the door. Hi. Plumbing service, he said, voice smooth and friendly. She smiled back, stepping aside. Yes. I'm Maya. The kitchen sink's been leaking for a few days. Jake walked in, scanning the kitchen as she led him to the source of the problem. Let's take a look. He knelt under the sink, tools clinking as he opened his bag. Maya stood nearby, trying not to stare, but it was difficult. He moved with a kind of easy control, confident but not arrogant. There was something about his presence that immediately shifted the atmosphere. She hadn't realized how long it had been since a man really noticed her, really looked at her like she mattered. Jake worked silently for a few minutes before glancing up. This pipe's pretty rusted. Whoever installed it didn't seal it right. Maya knelt beside him, peering under the sink. Their shoulders brushed. Just barely. Just enough for her to feel the heat of it. I guess I was waiting for my husband to deal with it, she said with a light laugh, trying to sound casual. Jake smirked, not unkindly. Men are great at putting off the small stuff, huh? Small stuff turns into big stuff when you ignore it long enough, she replied, surprised by her own tone. Jake looked at her, really looked. His eyes weren't aggressive or flirtatious, but they saw her. It was startling. He nodded. That's true. He stood up, brushing off his hands. I'll need to run out and grab a couple parts. Be back in a bit, if that's okay. She nodded. Of course. Jake returned an hour later, and by then, Maya had brewed another pot of coffee. She offered him a cup as he entered, and he took it with a grateful nod. Thanks. Most people just want me in and out. She tilted her head. Most people probably don't talk much to strangers. Are we still strangers? He asked, raising an eyebrow with a smirk. She smiled, avoiding the question. As he went back to work, they chatted about small things. The weather, the city, how hard it was to find decent coffee. It was innocent, mostly, but something unspoken hung between them. A kind of energy, familiar and foreign all at once. Maya found herself leaning against the counter, watching him. Her thoughts drifted to Ethan again. He used to be like Jake, curious, attentive, fun. But lately, their conversations were mostly about bills, appointments, and what time he'd land at the airport. She couldn't remember the last time someone had asked her something as simple as, "Are you okay?" Jake's voice pulled her from her thoughts. All done. Should be no more leaks now. She walked over to inspect the work, crouching beside him again. Looks like you saved my kitchen. He chuckled. Just doing my job. Their faces were close now. Not inappropriately close, but close enough. His eyes lingered for half a second too long before he stood and began packing his tools. Maya wanted to say something. Anything. But the words wouldn't form. Instead, she just watched him, heart pacing a little faster than before. As Jake walked toward the door, he paused. If anything else needs fixing, let me know. I'll be around. She nodded slowly. I will. And with that, he was gone. The house felt different now. Still quiet. Still echoing. But it wasn't the same kind of silence. It was charged, like something had been stirred awake. Maya walked back into the kitchen, her bare feet sticking slightly to the linoleum where the leak had been. She stood there, staring at the dry floor. Then, almost without thinking, she opened her phone and saved the plumber's number. Just in case. The next morning, the sky was overcast, casting a soft, grey hue through the windows. Maya stared out at the yard while sipping her coffee, the mug warm between her fingers but failing to chase the chill she felt inside. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Jake, the way he had looked at her, the warmth in his voice, the way he hadn't rushed. It should have been nothing. Just a plumber doing his job. But it wasn't nothing. She had felt it. That quiet moment under the sink. The pause before he left. The suggestion in his voice, subtle but unmistakable. The floor creaked as she paced the kitchen, restless. She looked down at the patch of linoleum where the leak had dried. Clean. Neat. Like nothing had ever been wrong. But something had shifted, and no amount of tightening screws or replacing pipes could undo it. Her phone buzzed. Jake. Hey Maya. Just checking in. Everything holding up okay? She hesitated only a second before replying. Maya. Yes, all good. That was fast work. Thanks again. Jake, I left a wrench in your cabinet by mistake. Mind if I swing by later to grab it? She stared at the message. Her heart skipped slightly. Maya, sure. I'll be home. She set the phone down, suddenly aware of the slight flutter in her chest. She moved to the mirror in the hallway, checking herself. Her hair was messy, her face bare. She hadn't cared about that lately. But now, maybe it mattered. She brushed her hair back, put on a touch of mascara. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. When the knock came at noon, she was ready. Casual, but not careless. Fitted jeans, a soft beige top that hugged her waist just enough to feel deliberate. She opened the door to find Jake standing there, the same ease in his posture, but now with a flicker of familiarity in his eyes. Hey, he said, smiling. Won't stay long. Just need to grab that wrench. Come in, she said, stepping aside. He moved through the house like he belonged, ducking slightly to retrieve the tool from under the sink. When he stood, he turned to her, slower this time, lingering. You've got a nice place, he said. Quiet. It's quieter than I'd like, she admitted, folding her arms. Jake leaned against the counter, holding the wrench loosely in one hand. Your husband away again? She nodded. 3 days. Maybe 4. Jake didn't respond right away. He looked at her, not just her face, but her. There was something in his eyes that wasn't just attraction. It was understanding. Recognition. Must get lonely, he said softly. Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. The rain started outside, light at first, then heavier. A rolling hush against the windows. She glanced toward the back door. Looks like you're stuck for a bit, she said. Jake smiled faintly. Not a bad place to be stuck. They stood there, not talking, just listening to the rain. The silence was thick, but not awkward. Charged. Like something on the verge of breaking. I was going to make another pot of coffee, Maya said, her voice almost too casual. Want some? Sure, he replied. She moved slowly, aware of his eyes following her. She poured the water, added the grounds, pressed the button. The hum of the coffee maker filled the space between them. Jake walked over, leaning beside her on the counter, close enough that she could feel his warmth. You always this hospitable? He asked, teasing gently. Only to certain kinds of guests. He turned slightly, and now their shoulders were touching again. Like before, only longer this time. Neither moved. Why did you text me? She asked suddenly, her voice barely a whisper. He was quiet for a moment. Then he answered, eyes on hers. Because I like talking to you. You don't get that a lot, do you? She shook her head, a tiny movement. Jake took a breath. Look, Maya. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't cross lines. But if you're standing at one, and you're thinking about stepping over, I'll meet you there. The coffee machine beeped. She turned away, pouring 2 cups, her hands trembling slightly. She handed him one. Their fingers touched. His were rough. Warm. They moved to the kitchen table. Sat down. The room felt smaller than before. More intimate. I shouldn't feel like this, she murmured, more to herself than to him. But you do, Jake said. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't trying. He was just there. Present in a way Ethan hadn't been in years. I don't even know you, she said. You know I noticed you. That I listened. That I see you. Sometimes that's enough. She looked at him, really looked. His face was calm, his eyes steady. No pressure. No assumptions. Just space. A dangerous kind of space. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Thunder rolled distantly. Maya swallowed. Her heart was loud in her chest. If you stay here much longer, something's going to happen. Jake set his coffee down gently. Then tell me to leave. She didn't. Couldn't. Instead, she stood, slowly walking toward the hallway. She paused, looked over her shoulder. The living room's warmer. He got up, followed without a word. They didn't touch. Not yet. But the distance between them was dissolving, inch by inch, breath by breath. Maya sat on the edge of the couch, legs curled under her. Jake sat beside her, his arm resting on the back of the couch, close but not quite touching her. They talked more, softer now. About nothing. About everything. His childhood. Her regrets. The smell of autumn rain. The ache of feeling invisible. And then, their hands found each other. Quietly, cautiously, fingers sliding together like they belonged. It was small. But in that moment, it felt monumental. A single touch in a house too quiet. Two people sitting in a storm they both saw coming. The storm outside deepened as the minutes passed, shadows dancing across the living room walls, lit faintly by the soft glow of a floor lamp. The thunder didn't shake the house, but something else did. Something quieter, more personal. The way Jake's hand felt in hers. The way her breath came a little shorter. The way her body leaned slightly toward him, without permission from her mind. Maya's thoughts swirled like the wind outside. She was still sitting. Still clothed. Still able to stop this. Yet everything in her, the silence, the ache, the long nights filled with absence, pulled her towards something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Warmth. Attention. Desire. Jake didn't move fast. He didn't try to touch more than her hand. But his presence was solid, patient, and unshakably real. And that was more dangerous than anything else. She turned her face toward him. His eyes searched hers, waiting, not asking, not pushing. Just letting the space speak for them both. I'm not sure what this makes me, she whispered. Jake's voice was low, steady. It makes you human. He lifted his hand, slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. The way his fingers moved, gentle, deliberate, sent a current through her chest. She didn't flinch. She leaned in. Their lips met, not with urgency, but with a kind of reverence. Like neither of them had been kissed in a long, long time. Like they were afraid to break whatever fragile thread had formed between them. Maya felt the world tilt. Not in fireworks or explosions, but in quiet collapse. The weight of restraint, falling away. She didn't stop the kiss. She deepened it. Jake's hand moved to her lower back, firm and warm. She pressed into him, her heart racing, not from lust alone, but from a strange, painful liberation. For the first time in years, she wasn't an afterthought in her own life. They didn't rush. The couch creaked beneath them as they shifted, mouths exploring, hands learning the shapes of each other slowly, respectfully. When Jake finally rose and extended his hand, she took it without speaking. He followed her down the hallway to the bedroom that still carried her husband's cologne, the framed photo of their wedding staring down from the dresser. For a moment, she stood frozen at the threshold. Guilt swelled, loud and sharp. Jake saw it in her face and stopped. Say the word, he said. And I'll go. But she didn't say it. She stepped into the room, letting the rain outside drown out the quiet protest in her head. Clothes were removed slowly, reverently. Jake touched her like someone afraid to break her. Not just her body, but the woman behind it. The woman who had spent too long going unnoticed. Their intimacy wasn't wild. It wasn't reckless. It was soft. Intentional. Wordless. A language spoken between fingertips and trembling lips, built on more than attraction. It was need. Not just sexual. Emotional. Spiritual. The kind of connection that leaves marks no one can see. Afterward, they lay silently on the bed, the sound of their breath mingling with the steady patter of rain. Maya stared at the ceiling, her chest rising and falling, her skin tingling with the aftershock. Not just of touch, but of realization. Jake turned his head toward her. No regrets. She didn't answer right away. I don't know. He nodded. That's fair. They dressed in silence. the weight of the act already settling around them. When they returned to the living room, the storm had begun to pass. The light outside was shifting. Jake picked up his wrench from the counter and turned to her with a calm she almost envied. "I'll go," he said. "But if you ever need someone to talk to again, you have my number." Maya walked him to the door. They stood there for a moment, not touching this time. Just staring. "Take care of yourself, Maya." She nodded. "You too, Jake." And then he left. No dramatic goodbye. No promises. Just the quiet sound of his footsteps fading into the rain-damp street. She closed the door slowly, leaning her forehead against it for a long moment. That night, she didn't sleep much. She lay in the bed that smelled of two men, one who belonged to her and one who made her feel like she belonged to herself again. 2 days later, Ethan returned. He hugged her at the door, kissed her cheek, told her how exhausting the trip had been. She nodded, smiled, said all the right things. He didn't notice a silence, or how long she stared out the kitchen window while he unpacked. He didn't ask about the leak. Or the plumber. Or anything, really. Later that evening, Maya sat at the kitchen table alone while Ethan scrolled through emails in the living room. She glanced at the sink. Perfectly dry now. Fixed. Functional. Just like her marriage appeared from the outside. But something inside had shifted. Something permanent. She didn't know if it would lead to a divorce, or therapy, or a slow fading into secrecy. She didn't know what came next. But she knew this. For one afternoon, during one rainstorm, she had been seen, held, wanted. And that feeling wouldn't leave her. Not for a long time.